Welcome. Wherever you are, take a deep breath and let it go. You're safe. You're warm. And now you're about to drift far, far back in time, to a place without cities, without borders. Just wind, grass, and silence stretching to the ends of the earth. This is the steppe. An endless ocean of land where the sky feels close and the earth never rests. Here, the rhythm of life was unlike anywhere else. No ticking clocks, just hoofbeats, no roads, just trails worn by instinct. Tonight, we all follow the quiet path of those who served the greatest land empire the world has ever known. Not as warriors, but as messengers, the lifeblood of an empire that moved faster than anyone thought possible. They were Mongol couriers, and this is what it was like. There are few things more important than messengers in any society, especially back in the days before telephones, telegraphs, and the internet. And the Mongol Empire in the early 1200s was so vast and required so much communication that they created one of the largest networks of relay stations for couriers, called yams, ever seen in history. Even when it was warm, you slept in your traveling clothes, as there is no time to waste in the morning. You have little time to spare, and the miles ahead are already piling up. Unlike most Mongol soldiers, you aren't carrying weapons. Sword would be an extravagance. Though you haven't seen another traveler in hours, you know there are others making the same journey as you, racing across the land to deliver their own messages. When you reach the post, you quickly dismount, tying your horse to a stake, while other riders tie their mounts up nearby. Quickly, you shout to the attendant and point to your horse. You raise your hand in greeting, knowing they are fellow runners on their own missions. You hear your friend shouting to you over the noise of the wind. He tells you about a group of merchants who rode past earlier, heading east. You remember them? You're used to sleeping in your clothes, and you prefer it. Time is measured only by the rising and setting of the sun and the arrival of each new horse. You don't need sleep. You never do. Your duty is too great to allow it. You are a servant of the Empire, and the Empire demands your service. No rest for you. You mount your horse and ride out of camp, taking your place once again on the road. It's an endless road. The sun beats down on you as you cross the plains. You are alone, completely alone. No one knows your name. No one cares. You are a nameless, faceless runner, a ghost on the wind. You ride into the sunset, the endless road stretching before you, the destination still far away. You are a creature of habit now, eating, sleeping, and thinking the same thoughts over and over again. You dream of home, of family and friends, of familiar places and faces. But when you wake, the dream is gone. You are alone again, facing the endless road ahead. You don't cry out for water or food. Your body has adjusted to the lack of both. But sometimes, just sometimes, when you pass a village, you smell freshly baked bread or roasted meat. It's a cruel trick of the yam system, teasing you with comforts you can no longer afford. It keeps you warmer and means you don't waste precious time in the morning getting dressed. You spread out your blankets on the ground and lay down. The cold seeps through your furs and into your bones. Burrow deeper into your blankets, seeking warmth where there is none. You close your eyes, trying to shut out the cold and the wind. The stars shine brightly overhead, mocking you with their distant, unreachable light. Sleep will not come tonight, nor will it come tomorrow. Now you know that you beat them to the next post. Satisfaction gives you a brief moment of pleasure. You didn't fail. And as you turn your horse and start down the road, you catch sight of your friend. He is waving. Hay has a message for you, a bit of news from home that wasn't important, but you appreciate the thought. Then he is gone and you are alone again. When you arrive, you see that the attendant has already untied your horse and is leading it away. In the corner, you spot your friend, one of the few people you've been able to call friends during this journey. He sees you and shouts greetings before disappearing behind a stack of crates. You quickly drink from a skin of water, but it does little to quench your thirst. Still, you are thankful to the helpers at the post. Though you spend little time there, someone is always watching the runners come and go. Life at a yam post was not easy, but someone had to do it. He understands and leads the animal away toward the stables. You don't need to check its flanks for fresh saddle sores. Here people stare after you. They know what you are. You are a runner, a man of importance, a bringer of news. They're glad to see you go. They rarely understood why you had to travel so fast, and they certainly didn't want you to stay and burden their meager supplies. You don't stop for them. You have too far to go. The villages become less frequent as you move further from the forest. Eventually, you are crossing a wide, empty plain, surrounded by nothing but grass and wind. You know they're there, just as you have them. All of the riders understand that they must take good care of the horses. Without them, the yam wouldn't work, and the empire would collapse into chaos. Besides, you have a more dangerous weapon than any blade, your knowledge. Instead, you drink some water, trying to quench the dryness in your throat. Ahead of you lies endless grassland, stretching as far as you can see. The wind whips past, making the tall grasses bend low and sway like waves in the sea. You blink against the bright sun, keeping your gaze steady on the road ahead. The miles roll by. Soon, the next yam post appears in the distance, and you push your horse into a faster pace, allowing the wind to fill out the large sail mounted at the back of your horse's head. The wind snatching at your cloak, you glance down at your message, a sealed scroll tied tightly to your saddle. You haven't looked at it for days, not since the Khan himself handed it to you, his eyes boring into yours. You knew, as did everyone, that this mission was critical. Well, failing was not an option. Turn and see the attendant coming back with a replacement horse. Another animal. Another chance to deliver your message safely. With a new horse saddled and ready to go, you climb onto its back and urge it forward. As you race out of the station, you glance back and see the attendant waving, shouting, and making signs. You know he's wishing you luck. Life at the post is probably dull. Most days the attendants watch the riders come and go, counting the hours until the next runner arrives. But when the post is attacked by bandits or worse, enemy soldiers, life gets very dangerous. The attendants often have to flee, hiding in the caves or deep holes they dug to keep their records safe. You are a spy. At least that's what your enemies think. In fact, you are simply a messenger, carrying news, orders, and decrees throughout the empire. Still, it can be just as deadly. Spies often operate alone, hidden away from their targets, observing and reporting on events. But you work right in the open, traveling well-trodden roads and meeting other travelers every few miles. For you, the danger comes from missing your mark. The consequences could be swift and brutal. The night before, you laid out everything you needed, and all of your equipment was checked and ready to go. The wind picks up here, whistling over the flat grasslands and whipping around anything foolish enough to stand in its way. Soon, you feel it against your shoulders, ruffling the fur of your hood. Finally, the first yam post appears in the distance. See it yet? As you near the relay station, the horses sense the change too, and begin to quicken their pace. You pull gently on the reins, urging your mount forward. But even without prodding, the animal's natural instincts kick in, and it begins to run faster. Right outside the tent, your horse snorts and stamps impatiently, eager to begin the day's travel. As the leader of this small band of travelers, you make sure everyone else is ready, and then get on your horse and set out into the morning. This led to the question, what if you were one of these elite yam riders who had to deliver important messages across the empire, no matter the cost? You start your day as most do, by waking up in the pre-dawn hours, sitting up in your tent, and pulling on whatever extra layers of clothing you can. The cold bites at your face, but you pull your hood tighter and keep going. As the sun climbs higher in the sky, the terrain changes from forest to steppe. The grassy plains that stretch from east to west across much of northern Asia, as you near the station, can see the fresh tracks of other riders kicking up dust along the road. You need to get going again, but there isn't time for food. But today's a good day. You've got a new mount, and the road is clear. As you near the post, you see a group of horsemen racing toward you, their own horses straining under the effort. When you're ready, you take your seat on your new horse and grip the reins tightly. You continue your ride, passing through villages occasionally. One evening, after weeks on the road, you decide to stop and pitch your tent for the night. After weeks of riding, you've lost track of the days. You rise and shake the sleep from your eyes. Thanks for watching. Now let us shift. The wind still carries the scent of dry grass, but we turn our gaze from the rider to the man who gave the rider his orders, to the man who forged silence into empire. Not a god, not a demon, just a man named Temujin. He was born sometime around 1162, near the Anon River, a place of rolling hills and rustling rivers, where tribes moved with the seasons and loyalty shifted like the sky. His father was a tribal chief. Briefly, then he was poisoned. Temujin was 9 years old, too young to lead, too dangerous to ignore. His family was cast out. During the meeting, Temujin suggested that since all these leaders were related, they should unite under one banner. And so he organized a clan assembly called the Kurultai, which brought together all the leading men from the various Mongol clans. Once he did this, he set about creating an army. But even great conquerors need help if they want to hold on to what they win. He met with Muslim, Christian, Buddhist, and Jewish scholars, and he even invited a Persian to convert him to Islam. He sent his son to study in Persia, and he corresponded with the Caliph of Baghdad about theology and philosophy. He was able to articulate his vision for a united Mongolia and inspire others to follow him. He was also skilled at negotiation and was able to forge alliances with other leaders. One example of his diplomatic skills was his ability to forge an alliance with the Taijut clan, which was a powerful and potentially dangerous rival. He had opened up the Eurasian landmass and created the largest contiguous land-based empire in history. His military campaigns had spread terror among his enemies, but also inspired awe and respect. His empire had facilitated the exchange of goods, ideas, and technologies between different cultures. And his legal code, the Yasa, had provided a framework for governing diverse peoples. Whether he was a hero or a villain depended on which side of his conquests you stood. But one thing was for sure. Genghis Khan was a man who rose from humble beginnings to become a legendary conqueror. He was a brilliant military strategist, an effective administrator, a religious thinker, and a master communicator and diplomat. His story is a testament to the power of ambition, determination, and the human spirit. He recognized the strategic value of the Taijut and their potential to strengthen his forces. So he sent his brother as a hostage to ensure their loyalty. And as the sun sets over the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, we remember the story of Temujin, the man who became Genghis Khan, the boy who became a legend. This was a risky move, as it involved a lot of trust and could have backfired if the Taijut had betrayed him. But it was a testament to Genghis Khan's charisma and ability to build relationships that he was able to secure the alliance. Though he never converted to Islam, he greatly admired its principles, and his lack of greed and desire for personal wealth, that he was able to launch his famous military campaigns into China and Western Asia. In his military campaigns, he demonstrated a deep understanding of his opponents, cultures, and was able to exploit their weaknesses while respecting their strengths. He was also known for his willingness to learn from his enemies and adapt his strategies accordingly. His religious tolerance was a key factor in his success in uniting the Mongolian tribes because he was willing to respect the beliefs of the people he ruled over. Firstly, the empire was so vast that it was difficult to govern effectively. Secondly, there was a succession crisis after Genghis Khan's death, which led to internal conflicts. Thirdly, the empire's enemies took advantage of the instability after Genghis Khan's death to rebel and break away from the empire. Finally, the Mongols themselves were a nomadic people who were not used to holding on to power for a long time. They were more interested in raiding and pillaging than in holding territory. Therefore, the empire began to crumble shortly after Genghis Khan's death. So alongside his military campaigns, Genghis also focused on creating a well-organized administration to govern his vast empire. He lived a simple life and was known for his frugality. He was not interested in amassing wealth for himself or living in luxury. Instead, he was motivated by a desire for power, adventure, and a sense of destiny. He believed that he was chosen by God to unite the Mongols and lead them to greatness. He was not driven by greed or a desire for personal gain, but rather by a thirst for knowledge, power, and a desire to leave a legacy behind. This is evident in the way he treated the cities he conquered. While he was ruthless towards those who opposed him, he was known for being generous and tolerant towards those who submitted peacefully. He respected cultural differences and was open to learning about different cultures. He also promoted trade and economic development within his empire, which helped to connect different regions and facilitate the exchange of goods and ideas. He implemented a merit-based civil service that was open to people of all social classes. He established a sophisticated postal system to facilitate communication across his empire. And he also issued a legal code known as the Yasa, which provided a framework for governing the diverse peoples under his rule. The Mongolian army was unlike any other force in the world at the time. It was based around cavalry units mounted on horseback. They relied on mobility and speed to outmaneuver their opponents. They used advanced archery techniques and were proficient in the use of horseshoes and stirrups. These innovations allowed them to ride faster, farther, and more comfortably than other armies. They also used psychological warfare tactics to intimidate their enemies. Genghis Khan was a brilliant military strategist, and he employed guerrilla tactics, feigned retreats, and lightning-fast attacks to defeat his enemies. Tempin was elected as their leader, and it was at this point that he was given the title of Genghis Khan. The title actually means oceanic ruler or supreme leader, and it was bestowed upon him by a rival clan that he had defeated in battle. Abandoned by their own tribe, left to survive alone on the steppe. In fact, Khan is a title that is used in many different languages, including Turkish, Arabic, and Persian. When referring to a leader, in medieval Europe, the title Khan was sometimes used to refer to the leader of nomadic groups, such as the Huns or the Mongols. These groups were often feared by the settled populations, because they were highly mobile and skilled warriors. The term Khan itself has a long history, and is believed to have originated from the Turkic languages. However, it has been borrowed by other languages, such as Chinese, Japanese, and Korean. Interestingly, in China, the title Khan was used as a noble title during the Yuan dynasty, which was founded by Kublai Khan, grandson of Genghis Khan. They dug roots from frozen ground. They trapped rats. They stitched old leather to wear as shoes. For most, this would have been the end of the story. But Temujin endured. He learned the rhythms of survival. He watched how men spoke, how they lied, how they waited. Before he was Genghis Khan, he was a boy, alone, hungry, hunted. Temujin's story does not begin with glory. It begins with exile. Though his father had been chief of a clan, when Temujin was 9 years old, he and his family were forced to leave their homelands after his father was killed by rivals. After years of hardship and struggle for survival, Temujin and his family were able to rally allies to take revenge on those who had done them wrong. And though Temujin and his wife Bort suffered the trauma of being captured by rival horsemen, and Temujin spent some time in prison, the couple eventually reunited and went on to have a son. Our world is full of people whose power seems unstoppable, like gods on earth, kings who built empires and crushed their enemies. And as you watch them, you probably forget there was once a time when they were nobody, an unknown face in a crowd, nobody important. But all great powers began with a beginning. All victories came from a first step. Even Genghis Khan, the title given to the founder of the Mongol Empire, which became the largest contiguous land-based empire in history. He was once just a young man who had to learn how to live and fight on the harsh landscape of Mongolia. So listen closely, because now we will go back to the beginning of his story. He grew up hearing the sounds of the wind across the grasslands, of birds circling overhead, and the murmurs of his mother, Oluni. By the time Temujin had reached his late 20s, he had made enough of a reputation for himself as a fighter that the leaders of the surrounding clans asked him to arbitrate a dispute between them. Now, for those of you who may not be familiar with Mongolian culture, the title Khan is typically given to a leader, much like how the English word duke is used to refer to a leader. The vast majority of Genghis Khan's accomplishments came after he united the tribes of the Mongolian steppe. So far, you may see the picture of a brutal dictator, someone who only knew war and conquest. While Genghis Khan was tolerant of different religions, he was particularly interested in understanding the religion of his subjects. However, one thing that Genghis Khan was not known for was opulence or luxury. In addition to his military and administrative skills, Genghis Khan was also a brilliant communicator and diplomat. It was thanks to his administration and organization of the Mongolian tribes. His skill in diplomacy, communication, and strategy. As for why Genghis Khan's empire fell apart after his death, it was due to several factors. But despite the short duration of the empire, the impact of Genghis Khan's conquests was profound. His deeds are whispered in the wind across the steppes of Mongolia, carried on the backs of eagles that circle high above the grasslands. Let the hoofbeats fade now. Let the tents fall behind you. Turn to something older, still waiting. The endless steppe can wear a traveler down. You may have seen the cattails in the distance and imagined another river up ahead. When you reach it, you realize it's just a mirage. The horizon repeats itself. The wind steals your words before you can utter them, so that they honored horses. A moment of life sealed in ice for 2,000 years? And yet even here in this windless pocket of ice, there are more questions than answers. Why were some graves enormous, with dozens of sacrificed horses, while others were small and unmarked? Why do so many artifacts mix styles? Persian, Chinese, local, far-flung and foreign. Oh, there's an idea. Of course there are big waves in the Black Sea, and when the wind rises it can turn ugly fast. But mostly it's calm. Mostly it reflects the sky. You can see why people would imagine it empty, because it feels empty. It looks empty. Look at their tusks. Look at their eyes. Can you imagine the crews of ironclads fearing them? You can still hear sailors telling the tale, invoking the eye, warning new crews to respect the dark water. But in the shadow of those tales lies a darker truth. In the world of bronze swords and chariot races, ordinary people simply trying to survive sometimes did extraordinary things. They stared down the gods themselves. Take Sargon, for example. He was a low-ranking official living in Lagash, a Sumerian city in ancient Mesopotamia around 2400 BC. His job, collecting taxes. But one day he meets a mysterious woman, Ninsan, who tells him he's destined for greatness. With her help, he overthrows the king and establishes his own dynasty. Nobody knows if he actually existed. It's the same warning we all need to heed when we sail the Black Sea. He hears the gods are destroying humanity, so he embarks on a wild quest to find the secret of immortality. Along the way, he battles a giant scorpion, loses his best friend to the underworld, and learns the meaning of heroism and friendship. There's Enkidu, a wild man raised by animals. He's summoned to the city by the gods and becomes friends with Gilgamesh. But when he dies, Gilgamesh goes mad with grief and embarks on a quest for immortality. And though he doesn't find what he's looking for, he does find himself. Don't ask whose shores you touch. Don't ask what's yours and what's mine. Just ask what's beautiful, what's terrible. Ancient stories, modern eyes. It's the best part. You can stream them anywhere, anytime. And what's ancient beyond all reckoning. Remember, some things are older than maps. Some things are older than war. Some things are older than us. No, but the men who sailed these waters 2,500 years ago did. And they called the sea home. Marmara, Bosporus, Propontis, then the Black Sea. To them it wasn't empty. It teemed with monsters. And not just boars, but Scylla, the many-headed dog, and the Gorgon Medusa. But most terrifying of all, a single eye staring up from the depths. It was blind. It was inescapable. It was called the Pillar of Atlas, and according to legend, it punished anyone who disturbed its sleep. We say it's empty. Were these rulers, priests, chosen messengers? We cannot ask them. They do not reply. Dark water, dark name, not a sea you'd choose for a fight. But this is where they chose it. Iron ships clashed here, swung grappling hooks, then fell into the dark water and swam for shore under fire. What do you imagine shores like this? Or maybe shores like that? The Black Sea isn't wide or deep. It's long and narrow. Imagine stretching out a hand and touching both sides at once. This is the coast of Romania, and this Bulgaria, and this Turkey, and this Russia, and there's Ukraine. This tiny piece right here is the Crimean Peninsula, which belongs to. Well, that's a complicated question. The mounds remain soft, round, still covered in grass, touched by wind. That they buried with care. Death was a journey, not an end. Some kurgans hold warriors, others shamans. But they left these quiet bumps in the earth that refuse to be forgotten. So the next time you see a hill, low, round, and strange, remember it may not be a hill at all. It may be a memory. It's buried in silence, and still listening. Some we don't know. If you meet this woman on the street, you'll think, wait, where have I seen you before? And you won't know the answer. She lives in your mind, because she lives in our story. From the time she was 29 years old and played the titular role in Werner Herzog's film Strashek to the present day, 78-year-old actress Eva Matz has been shaping memorable characters with her powerful presence and haunted eyes. A child wrapped in fur. Then I tracked her through her filmography, discovering, rewatching, appreciating her range and power. From dramas like The White Ribbon and character studies like Head On, from shorts like Paris, Texas, Tokyo, to epic historical films like Mongol and the Last Kingdom. Recently, I watched Eva in Shadow in the Cloud, an intense World War II thriller where she commands every scene. This woman has brought unforgettable characters to life. If you want to experience her work, you'll find it streaming and on disc. An elder with missing teeth, all laid with the same quiet respect. Sky widens until it seems to swallow all thought. So let the hoofbeats fade now. Forget the camels and wagons. Let the tents fall behind you. It's turned to something older. Still waiting. This is the land where history remembers itself. Come now to the mountains. To the foothills. Here above the barley fields and the truck stop, the land is dotted with soft grass-covered hills. The Sarmatians, the early nomads whose names have faded, but whose bones remain. Not chaos, not horror, but a kind of frozen ceremony, bodies carefully positioned. Sometimes one, sometimes several, a man laid on his back, arms folded. Gold earrings still in place, horse bones beside him, a loyal mount sent to join him in the next world. Nearby, pots, tools, fragments of fabric still clinging to rusted blades. Sometimes a woman is there too, not beside the man, but buried in her own space, with mirrors, beads, and the worn remains of woolen robes. The air inside is dense, but the silence is older than language. And always there is the earth, packed tightly above, pressing down like time itself. They are scattered across thousands of kilometers. A trail of silence left by people who lived without cities, but not without memory. No one knows exactly how many kurgans exist. Some have been robbed. Some have collapsed. Many have never been opened. They do not rise high. They do not call attention to themselves. But they are not natural. They are kurgans, ancient burial mounds. And beneath each one, the past sleeps quietly. These mounds predate the Mongols. Some are 2,000 years old, others older still. They belong to the Scythians. When archaeologists do open them, what they find is quiet wonder. What do these graves tell us? In one kurgan, high in the Altai Mountains, they found something extraordinary, a body perfectly preserved in permafrost. Tattoos still visible, skin like wax. The nomads of the steppe left few cities, few books, few statues. You will never forget this face. I first saw Eva in Herzog's Grizzly Man and was struck by her intensity. And now you'll want to watch this video about the real-life inspiration for Evelyn from the movie. Next, we have the Black Sea. It's also called the Black because it's dark. But let us put aside what belongs to whom and talk about something that belongs to everyone. The wild boars. Yes, there are wild boars in Crimea. We don't know who disturbed it or how, only that the punishment was swift and terrible. The sea rose and swallowed everything in sight. The ancient world had heroes, had gods. Its greatest stories you've probably heard. King David slaying Goliath, Perseus slaying Medusa. Then there's Gilgamesh, 2/3 god, 1/3 human, king of Uruk. And we can explore these stories and more through a new series on a streaming service. It's a hard day's ride from Karakorum, capital of the Mongol Empire, across the windswept Mongolian steppe to a nameless yurt where history happened. Here we leave the wind outside, turn from the graves in the ground and step into warmth. The felt flap of the yurt lifts. And for the first time tonight, you are not cold. The floor is covered in thick rugs made of sheep wool, tools and banners. Everything has a place. Everything is watched. Children whisper nearby, rehearsing a poem. An elder dozes upright on a cushion, his fingers still wrapped around a carved bone amulet. Here, nothing is rushed. Here, time is not measured in minutes, but in guests, meals, and fires. Being noble does not mean doing less. The noble removes his hat, unwraps his belt, rests his head on a small carved wooden pillow. Just like the courier, just like the servant, just like the emperor, he sleeps under the same stars. Yet while others ride, dig, or serve, he waits, he watches. His power is not loud, it is persistent. It lingers like the scent of pine smoke on wool, like the warmth of a fire long after it's gone out. They ambush their former friends from school, the sons of the merchant class, taking their goods and livestock. Convert to his new religion of Tengriism, submit and pay tribute or burn to death. Most chose submission. When he encountered resistance, he showed no mercy. But now the industrious merchants of the West were no match for the brutal efficiency of Genghis. He introduced postal relay systems, accounting rules, weights and measures, and a legal code. But when you walk through this empty yurt, you can feel their presence linger, like the scent of smoke on wool, like the warmth of a fire long after it's gone out. Under his rule, the Mongols collected taxes and followed accounting rules. Peasants were protected from exploitation, and merchants could travel safely on the roads. Although he himself was illiterate, he started the first Mongol schools. Unfortunately, most of what we know about Genghis comes from his enemies. Most accounts come from the Kara Kitai, or the Western Shaya. Of course, they exaggerated his cruelty, but that still leaves us with a terrifying legacy. Genghis Khan died in 1227 from injuries sustained in a fall from a horse. His empire, now the largest in the world, continued under his successors. His grandson Guyuk united the Mongol tribes, and grandnephew Kublai built the world's largest contiguous land empire, yet Genghis remains the most popular of the Khans. Genghis, the boy who survived, the young man who avenged, the Khan who united, and the conqueror who changed the world. He broke their alliances, pillaged their cities, and deported their population east. Next, he smashed the Kara Kitai, crushing their armies and burning their cities. The ruler of Khwarezm Shah fled east to India, leaving behind a shattered empire. Meanwhile, Genghis turned north, conquering the nomadic tribes of Mongolia. All were defeated, except the Taijut clan. They fought alongside Genghis against the Kara Kitai, then betrayed him and seized his ancestral lands. To reclaim his heritage, Genghis marched west again, taking back his birthright. Along the way, he crushed rebel Kara Kitai lords. Finally, he was undisputed master of the Orkhan Valley and the rest of Mongolia. The empire was complete. He's titled Great Khan of the Mongols. He even executed some of his own men for looting. Discipline was key to his victories. Under his rule, all Mongols were equal. Social status was replaced with merit. Officers were promoted based on their ability, not their birthright. Loyalty to the leader was more important than loyalty to clan. Those who proved themselves to him were given wealth and power, and then they turned on each other. Genghis killed his brother in a fight over a wife and young children. Loot was divided equally amongst the soldiers. Looting civilians was forbidden. Prisoners of war could be ransomed. But if they tried to escape, they would be put to death. If a soldier committed an offense, he could be fined, demoted, or flogged. But if he committed an act of valor, he was rewarded with women, horses, or land. Soon he was leading his own clan, united by blood, by marriage, and by ambition. Cavalry would appear out of nowhere, destroy a city, and disappear before any relief could arrive. Siege warfare was equally devastating. They surrounded cities, cut off water supplies, and then waited. When the population revolted, the Mongols opened the gates and slaughtered all who came outside. One by one, he brought the warring clans of the Mongols under his banner, starting with his own, the Borgajit, Day, his mother's clan. Finally, the most powerful, the Taijut clan of his father's line. With each victory, his army grew, soon numbering in the thousands. It means doing differently. What matters is the story that starts here, because Genghis changed the world. Under his grandson Kublai, the empire would stretch from the Pacific to Poland. It was the largest contiguous land-based empire in history. His father, Yasuge, was the leader of a small clan of Mongols. The Mongols were never a unified people until Genghis forged them together. In fact, they were usually at war with each other. But by the time Genghis was 9, his father had secured a small alliance of clans, and was trading with the wealthy city of Karakorum, capital of the powerful Kara Kitai, a Turkish empire which dominated Central Asia. But that prosperity was short-lived. While visiting the city, Yasuge was poisoned supposedly by the Kara Kitai, who wanted their neighbor to die. With his father gone, young Temujin, renamed Genghis, meaning ocean, took his mother and siblings on the road. Without the protection of his clan, the family faced a terrible choice: submission or starvation. But Genghis chose a third option: survival. The family survived on berries, fish, and whatever game they could catch. Years of hardship turned Genghis into a fierce hunter, tracker, and warrior. By the time of its collapse in the 1300s, Their borders stretched over 24 modern countries. Their impact on history is undeniable. You sink into them slightly. Every movement feels muffled, respectful. Even your thoughts seem to slow down. They didn't build great monuments, so little physical evidence remains. And yet Genghis is the most famous of the Khans. So how did such an obscure people become so powerful? Let us tell you the story of the man who became the monster and the Khan who changed the world. His authority comes from the Khan, but his respect must be earned locally through gifts, protection, fairness. Decisions are made aloud. Disputes are judged calmly. Nothing is written. Everything is remembered. In this yurt, diplomacy is quiet. Power is spoken in soft voices. A wrong word may not be punished today, but it will not be forgotten. A large iron pot bubbles quietly with salty milk tea. Suteyasai, flavored with a hint of yak butter. A sheep is carved carefully. The heart, the liver, the kidney, passed in a silent ritual of honor. No shouting, no clapping. Even joy is restrained, as though laughter might offend the past. A woman refills your bowl without speaking. You nod, you sip. Inside, it is dim but glowing. A fire burns gently at the center, its smoke rising through a small hole in the roof. The air smells of butter, wool, and smoke-soaked pine. There is no gold, no marble, but there is comfort. You are in the home of a Mongol noble. Perhaps a Noyan, a commander of 1,000 warriors. Perhaps a relative of the Khan. Around you, the walls are lined with furs and saddles. Each morning, the noble receives messengers. Not with gold, but with meat, textiles, horses, and tribute. Food is shared with everyone, but the best cuts go to the noble and his guests. At night, the yurt grows darker, the fire dims, the silence deepens. Genghis Khan was born in 1160 somewhere in this area. Historians can't agree on exactly where, but that doesn't matter. Yet they were a nomadic people living in yurts like this one. Genghis was born into conflict. By his late teens, Genghis and his brother had grown tired of begging for food. When Genghis conquered a settlement, he gave the inhabitants 3 choices. The Mongols followed a simple code of laws, harsh but fair. Genghis expanded his empire quickly. His elite fighting force, the Kaisig, used hit-and-run tactics and psychological warfare. The Western Shah was the first to fall. The Western Shah dynasty had prospered by controlling trade along the Silk Road. He ruled for only 18 years, but in that time, he transformed his people from scattered clans to a vast empire. After 1,200 years, the Mongols are long gone. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more stories of history's greatest leaders. And now, our journey across the steppe draws to a close. The horses have returned to their posts. Scrolls have been delivered. The fires inside the yurts have burned low. All is still. We have followed the path of a lone courier, felt the cold bite at his hands, heard the hoofbeats echo across empty miles. We have walked beside a boy named Temujin. Watched him rise, not through birth, but through endurance, till the world whispered his name in fear and in awe. We have stepped quietly through ancient burial mounds, graves that hold more questions than bones, wrapped in grass and wind and reverence. And we have rested, if only for a moment, beneath the felted ceiling of a noble's yurt. Surrounded by calm, by ritual, by a kind of slow and silent command. It is strange, isn't it? How much of history is quiet? Not the noise of battles or speeches, but the hush between footfalls, the silence of waiting, the rhythm of routine, the slow breath of generations moving through the same cold wind. The Mongol Empire, for all its speed and power, was built by people who listened to the land, to their horses, to one another. And now here you are, far from that world, but still wrapped in silence, still held by stillness. Let your body grow heavier. Let your thoughts drift like dust across the plain. There is nothing to chase now, no message to carry, no fire to keep alive. Only rest, only breath. Good night. Welcome. Take a breath. Let it settle. The city beyond your window is quiet now, but in your mind we are about to enter one that never truly slept. Not the Rome of triumphal arches and chiseled marble, not the postcard of philosophers in togas debating under perfect skies. No, we're entering the other Rome, the one made of smoke, noise, and wood. A place where most people lived tightly packed, 6 floors high, in walls thin as parchment. A place where smells lingered, tempers simmered, and the fire brigade was more feared than trusted. This was the Rome of the ordinary, of the workers, the vendors, the poor, and the almost invisible. So tonight, let's climb the rickety stairs of a Roman insula. Let's feel what life was really like. What do you imagine when you hear the word Rome? Gladiators fighting to the death, perhaps, or chariot races, or maybe an emperor being assassinated? These are important moments in Rome's history. But today, we're exploring what life was like for ordinary Romans. And besides, most Romans lived outside the city, and they weren't going to be told how to make a living. All over Italy, wheels crunched on stone, metal rang on metal, hammers struck leather. The countryside was full of mills, of looms, of anvils. Noises were a fact of Roman life, and people grew accustomed to them. The earth trembled during earthquakes. Foundations failed. In the 3rd century AD, the earthquake shook the city hard. Most fearful residents had good reason to be worried. In the middle of the 19th century, excavations discovered an ancient Roman house in the Via Fori Imperiale neighborhood. The uneven terrain and shaky soil caused buildings to buckle, lean, and eventually fall down. What are we to make of the noise? Well, it seems that they were just part of daily life for ordinary Romans. If you were quick, you could flee to Naples. But what would you take with you? Whether it's from the wind, the waves, or the crowds, we humans grow accustomed to it. We build our lives around it. And when it stops, we notice immediately. The silence is deafening. Which family member would you try to save? Where would you go? How long could you stay on the road? This eruption was one of the deadliest in history. It covered Pompeii in layers of volcanic material, killing thousands. Nearby Herculaneum was buried under a thick layer of mud. Whole communities were wiped out. Some residents were trapped forever, others died trying to escape. Few could have predicted such a fate. Even fewer could have imagined a rescue. Could complain, of course. The poet Catullus called his neighbor a noisy drunkard, while Martial, who wrote a series of witty epigrams, complained bitterly about his noisy neighbor Pompey, who he said laughed loudly and liked to party hard. If you did, please give us a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe for more fascinating journeys. Of course, they are exceptions. Mostly people just got on with life. After all, life was tough enough without letting the neighbors get to you. Archaeologists noticed that it was built against the slope of a hill. Over time, the soil had shifted, causing the foundation to slant. Pretty soon, the house started to crack. Experts stepped in and saved the house, but it was a close call. People ran into the streets in terror, fearing new plagues or divine retribution. Instead, they found gaping chasms opening up in the ground. The richer Romans fled to the countryside. Others looked for higher ground. Still others prayed for the earth to stop shaking. After all, the damage was extensive. Homes collapsed, aqueducts crumbled, statues toppled. So let's just dive right in. Imagine it's early morning. It had 25 rooms, lovely gardens, and astonishing views. Pliny also noted its distance from the road. The house was a long way from traffic. Here was a choice: closer to the action or peace and quiet. A parent would teach their kids how to cross the street, avoid dog bites, recognize poisonous mushrooms, extinguish fire, treat a snake bite, help someone having a seizure. Life was uncertain. Sometimes disaster struck from the sky. Meteors fell, lightning struck, and a building caught fire. When this happened, everyone pitched in. Neighbors helped neighbors. Men, women, children, all rushed to help. The crowd beat down flames with buckets of water. When the danger passed, the survivors consoled each other and began to clear the rubble. In those days, country houses were often built far from roads, so far that servants had to stay overnight on trips between the city and the countryside. In other words, the very rich could afford to live far from the noise, and they chose to. Now the sun hasn't yet crept over the tiled roofs. On the one hand, they tell us about the city's extraordinary wealth. Thousands of workers, hundreds of workshops, dozens of mills meant that there were countless sources of income in the city. On the other hand, these noises also demonstrate inequality. Living far from the road was a luxury. Most Romans didn't have the money to do so. You open your eyes. But the room is still dark. There are no windows up here. The buildings were made of wood, surprisingly so, because wood was expensive. But space was scarcer. In the insulae, you took what you could get. You might have bought a room or shared one with your family. You slept on a straw pallet. The air hung heavy with smells, stale waste, chamber pots, neighbors. It was hot. There were rats. You ate with the crumbs from the bakeries below. At least there was bread. Then came the shouts in the street, vendors hawking their wares, soldiers returning from campaign, drunken sailors on leave, slaves auctioned on the corner, men calling out to their prostitutes, women gossiping as they drew water from the public fountain, children playing, goats bleating, dogs barking, men brawling, then silence, the sudden collapse of a floor, the crack of a collapsing wall. You live on the 6th floor of an insula, a Roman apartment block, and you are tired. Your bed is made of straw and rope, and it creaks beneath you as you shift. You're already sweating. Rome is hot, always hot. There's no bathroom, not even a chamber pot. If you need relief, you'll descend all 6 flights and step into the alley. If you're lucky, the public latrine isn't overflowing. If you're not, well, you try not to think about it. The walls are thin. You can hear your neighbors argue. Your voices bounce around, overlapping with the sounds of coughing, of clattering pots, of a baby's tired cry. Your home is made of wood, mud, brick, and fear. You smell bread baking 3 stories below, and above that, smoke again. Fires are common. They start from cooking fires, oil lamps, a moment of carelessness. Once one catches, the whole insula can burn. Sometimes the fire brigade helps. Sometimes they wait until bribes are paid. There's no running water this high up. The aqueducts feed the rich, the bathhouses, and the public fountains. If you want clean water, you carry it up, bucket after bucket. If you drop one, someone below may shout or curse you. Or worse, night brings no peace. The streets echo with drunk voices, the clang of sandals, the distant rattle of a cart. There's no glass on your window, only wood shutters. Mosquitoes drift through the cracks. So does the stink of nearby tanners. And yet, this is life. You're a Roman. You might work in a bakery, a laundry, or on the docks. You eat bread, olives, maybe lentils, if there's time to cook. You laugh with neighbors. You learn to sleep through noise. You fear collapse during storms. Some insulate, fall in silence, taking all 6 floors with them. But you endure, because you must. Down in the forums, senators make speeches. Emperors ride chariots. But up here, high above their polished sandals, you live the rhythm of survival. A creaking stair, a leaking roof, a narrow beam of light. This is Rome, too. And it was never built to be quiet. A few emperors tried. Nero famously banned potters and leather workers from the city center. But noises echoed off the marble anyway. But why did they put up with it? In the 1st century AD, the historian Pliny, the Younger, described his uncle's country estate. There are 2 ways to look at the noises of ancient Rome. In the insulae, the apartment blocks favored by the poor, the dominant sound was probably the creak of stairs. The Romans knew that the ground beneath their feet was not always solid. We know the feeling, don't we? But remember, in the age of antiquity, there was no construction safety. Excavations across the city show that many houses suffered similar fates. To survive in ancient Rome, you needed grit. The city was dangerous, especially for children, and sometimes the noise came from the skies. The year was 80. You're standing in the ruins of Pompeii, watching Mount Vesuvius spit ash and pumice. When it comes to noise, there's little comfort in history. So we hope that you enjoyed this journey back in time to experience the sights, smells, and sounds of ancient Rome. So what makes Nero different? Well, perhaps that's a better question for the ages after him. What made him a horror to the Romans of the time? And there, waiting in his domos, surrounded by sculpture and incense, is a young man named Nero. He did not begin as a monster. Born Lucius Domitius Ahenobarbus in 37 CE, he was the great-great-grandson of Augustus. But power came to him almost by accident or design. A man who may have been no worse than many emperors, but whose legend burned brighter and longer. Let's follow the path of a visitor entering the Domus Aurea in its heyday. You pull to the side and wait as it passes. Frescoes adorn the walls, depicting mythical scenes. Fountain gurgles in the center. Palm trees sway gently. Slaves hurry about, attending to their duties. You join a throng of nobles and senators for dinner in the great hall. Wine flows freely. Food is plentiful. Slave approaches, balancing a plate laden with figs, dates, pomegranates, grapes. You accept one and eat it slowly, savoring its sweetness. Conversation is lively, jokes are told, poets recite their work, musicians play. Suddenly, a hush falls over the crowd. The emperor has risen. He stands before his throne, holding a scroll. All eyes are on him. He begins to speak. His voice booms across the hall. You listen intently, enthralled by his every word. When he sits down, the applause is thunderous. You join in, eager to please. You know that tomorrow, you will forget most of what he said. In fact, you already are forgetting. But tonight, you are a part of something special, something unique. Tonight, you are in the presence of greatness. You catch sight of a woman through an open door, her form outlined against the light. Thank you for joining me today. Hope you enjoyed seeing this incredible place as much as I enjoyed showing it to you. If you liked this video, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an exciting episode. I would also like to say a special thank you to our supporters whose names you can see on screen right now. If you would like to see your name on the screen and contribute to the production of these videos, go check out our support page. Bye. Her voice rings out, singing or reciting poetry. You avert your eyes quickly, satisfied to have glimpsed her. You step out into the peristyle, a colonnaded walkway surrounding a rectangular courtyard. On one side, a library, its shelves filled with scrolls. On another, a bathhouse, steam rising from its pools. You notice an inscription on the wall, dedicated to the emperor by one of his provinces, listing its many accomplishments. You read it proudly, knowing that you live in a golden age. You hear the sound of flutes and lyres. You follow the music to the exedra, a semicircular structure with couches and chairs set before it. There, reclining, is the emperor himself, surrounded by beautiful people, listening to musicians, drinking wine, discussing art. You bow to him from afar, and he returns the gesture graciously. Turning back to the musicians, he begins to sing. His voice is surprisingly good. You smile, entranced. You relax into a chair and enjoy the show. You watch, mesmerized, as men carry a bier toward the nearby Forum of Augustus. On it, a corpse draped in purple cloth. Behind it, mourners, some weeping openly, others stoic. You recognize the consul. You recall his wife, her beauty, the party they hosted last month. How lively he was, how full of laughter, and now he is dead. You shudder and turn away. The procession disappears into the forum. You shake off the chill and drive on, eager to be home. Your carriage rolls up to the Porta Metronia, a triumphal arch built by the emperor to celebrate a victory over the rebellious Baltics. Because nothing says I am the most powerful man in the world like driving through a giant arch on your way to visit your friend's house. Once through, you find yourself on the Via di San Gregorio, lined with shops and taverns and brothels, all made of marble. It's a sunny afternoon. The air is warm. Children laugh and play, dodging stray dogs and vendors' carts. Street musicians tune their instruments. Lovers whisper sweet nothings. Everyone is happy because everyone has paid their taxes. But look, trouble ahead. Roadwork. A gang of slaves direct traffic around a fountain under repair. You curse under your breath and inch forward. Cure. You recognize a senator being escorted by two muscular Praetorian guards. You greet him warmly and ask after his family. He nods curtly and hurries on. You notice fine clothes, expensive sandals, the gold ring on his finger. Slaves hurry past, carrying baskets of fruit, vegetables, bread, wine, fish. One trips and drops his load. You step out of the way. He looks up and offers a weak smile. You return it and continue on your way. Finally, the road is clear. You drive on, leaving the vulgarity of the city behind. Now, if you can believe it, we are actually at the bottom of the garden here. This was the lowest level of Nero's famous Golden House, and we're actually quite literally below street level. You can see how even in the plan of the house, how this area, which would have been full of lush gardens and ponds and fountains and sculptures, even artificial lakes would have been at ground level, even though we are now many, many feet below the streets above us. It was only thanks to the eruption of Mount Vesuvius and the destruction of Pompeii that preserved this part of the house. This area of the palace, which would have been full of water and statues and flowers and trees, was protected from looters, because the mountain blocked access to this part of the city, so it remained intact. His mother, Agrippina the Younger, was patient, clever, and determined. She married Emperor Claudius, then ensured that Nero, her son from a previous marriage, was adopted as heir. At just 16, Nero became emperor. For a time, things were calm. He reduced taxes, supported the arts, and avoided war. But whispers began that Agrippina still pulled the strings, as she stood behind the throne, whispering policy. And so, Nero began cutting strings. First figuratively, then literally. His mother died in a suspicious boating accident. And then things began to shift. What was so jarring about his reign? Hi everyone, welcome to this house. Today, we are descending into the heart of ancient Rome to explore the ruins of Nero's Golden House. Make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an exciting episode. Let's descend now, not just from the insula, but through the layers of myth and memory, down into the marbled corridors of power. Nero fancied himself an artist, a musician. He performed on stage, wrote poetry. In a society where dignity was everything, this was considered deeply shameful. The senators watched, the people whispered, and then fire. In 64 CE, a blaze swept through Rome. It lasted for 6 days. 10 of the city's 14 districts were damaged. And the stories began that Nero had fiddled while Rome burned. He had sung of Troy as the flames consumed the city. He started it himself to clear space for a new palace. But none of these claims are confirmed. The sources disagree. Many were written long after his death, by enemies, by survivors, by the scandal-hungry. What we do know is this. After the fire, Nero built the Doma Aurea. The Golden House, a massive palace, gilded and extravagant, with artificial lakes and rotating dining rooms. To deflect blame, Nero accused an obscure religious sect, the Christians. Their members were arrested. Many were executed, quietly, publicly, ritualistically. Nero's paranoia deepened. He feared betrayal from within his circle. Even his closest advisors fell out of favor or out of windows. By 68 CE, the Senate turned on him. The army followed. Alone, abandoned, and declared an enemy of the state, Nero fled. Hiding in a villa outside the city, he paced, and finally, when soldiers approached, he ordered his own death. At just 30 years old, Rome's most infamous emperor was gone. What remains of Nero? Painted stories, conflicting letters, crumbled stone. But let's go back up. The road widens into a grand avenue. The shops give way to statues and fountains. Cypress trees line either side. Here comes a funeral procession. Welcome to the atrium of the Golden House, a relatively small space compared to the rest of the palace, but also the center of domestic life here. As night falls, the palace comes alive. Lanterns illuminate frescoes in marble. Fountains sparkle with colored lights. Statues seem to dance in the shadows. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of your tour of the Doma Aurea. We're going underground today. Not to the crowded catacombs or the great aqueducts, but to the shadowy places beneath Roman bathhouses, under temples, inside caverns carved by hand. Here, hidden from the daylight, the followers of Mithras met for secret rituals. And here, too, the Orphic cults held their mysteries. A young man sits cross-legged in a garden, an apple in his hand. Yet what exactly was happening here? What kind of worship took place in these underground Mithraea? Soldiers traveling from the east brought the cult with them and introduced it to new recruits. Despite its numerous sanctuaries scattered across the provinces, the Romans never abandoned their traditional polytheism for this new mystery cult. And that's strange when we consider how popular Mithras became in the later empire. Sol Invictus, the invincible sun, appeared on countless coins, on statues and monuments, and even on the armor of Roman soldiers. He became a symbol of the empire, a personification of Rome's strength and endurance. You might think that the cult of Mithras was simply absorbed into the official state religion. But that doesn't really explain why such a popular figure remained shrouded in mystery. Gradually, however, it spread outside the military, becoming popular among merchants and young men in the cities. Under Constantine, it became the official religion of the empire. After that, the old ways were gradually stamped out, forgotten, suppressed. The temples of Mithras were sealed and abandoned, filled with debris and forgotten. Today, we find them beneath city streets, beneath the rubble and silt of centuries. The scent of incense is long gone. the echoes faded, and Mithras, once god of soldiers, of loyalty, of secrets, is remembered only in shadowed stone. So we know that these followers of Mithras were mostly young males, but we also know that they came from different social backgrounds. And until next time, thanks for watching. Slaves and emperors alike were drawn to the cult. Among the most famous Roman emperors, we know that Commodus was initiated, but so was Marcus Aurelius, Hadrian, Septimius, Severus, and Elagabalus. Despite the secrecy of the cult, though, we don't really know why men joined. Was it for the fellowship? The sense of belonging to a secret group? The opportunity to escape the hustle and bustle of everyday life? To share meals, drink wine, and make merry in the company of like-minded men? Or was it the promise of something more, a chance for rebirth, a way to cheat death and achieve immortality? Whatever the reason, this was a highly secretive religion, and we can be sure of that much. They met in the dead of night and celebrated with torches, chants, and music. We can imagine the flickering light of oil lamps revealing scenes of wild abandon, frenzied dancing, and the clatter of metal cups. We don't know if human sacrifice ever took place, but we do know that animal sacrifices were made. In some Mithraea, the remains of pigs, sheep, and cattle have been found. That is a question we can only answer by piecing together fragments of evidence from all across the Roman Empire. The first thing we should know is that this was a male-only religion. Women were forbidden from entering the mysteries. These sites were used for ritual meals, feasts, celebrations, and in all likelihood, orgiastic rituals. Drinking parties fueled by wine and sex were a feature of many Roman religions, but none were as secretive about it as the cult of Mithras. We know that members of the cult were organized into 7 ranks, and we have a good idea of the titles given to each rank, although we don't really know what the levels actually represented or what the degrees meant in practice. At the lowest level was the Raven, and at the highest, the Lion. Between these two, there was the title Bull, Dog, Snake, Torch, Crown, and Father. It seems likely that each step involves symbolic trials, but beyond that, we're in the realm of speculation. For while these titles have survived, their actual meaning has been lost to time. Let us go below the bustling streets of ancient Rome. We know that the sanctuary would be reached through a tunnel, and that at its end. At the back of the cave, a square platform would hold a carving of their god Mithras. In some, a single figure dominates the entire wall. In others, the focus is on a scene from the god's life. In this one, for instance, we see Mithras, forever young, eternally youthful, strong and handsome, slaying a bull. It's important that we understand that this isn't just any bull. It's a sacred bull, the very sun itself in disguise, or perhaps the moon. Why is this important? Well, because there are other carvings which show a dog, a snake, and a raven, 3 creatures which would also become associated with the sun's journey across the sky. Taken together, we start to piece together the possible meaning of this image. And what we see is a clear echo of the constellations, a celestial drama played out in the sky above every evening. And in this performance, the bull represents Taurus, the bull, the constellation, while the raven or crow could symbolize Corvus, the crow. As for the dog, well, that might be Canis Minor, the lesser dog, or maybe Canis Major, the greater dog, or even Canis Lupus, the wolf dog. All 3 of these constellations can be found in the vicinity of Taurus during the winter solstice, a time of year when the days are shortest and the nights are longest. The fact that Mithras is taking on the bull in this carving suggests the idea of rebirth. Life is conquered by death and then brought back to life again, just as the sun dips below the horizon and then returns each day. The followers of Mithras were convinced that their god had already conquered death, and that those who worshipped him would gain immortality after this life was over. So the carving of Mithras slaying the bull becomes a symbol of renewal and rebirth, both on a cosmic level and in the lives of those who followed him. Beneath the luxurious villas and the warm glow of taverns, down into the cool, dark places where another world beckons, here in the subterranean sanctuaries known as Mithraea, the followers of the Persian god Mithras gathered in the dead of night. It's hard to overstate just how secretive this cult was. They left behind no written word, no scriptures or sermons, no records of their beliefs or practices. Only fragments of information gleaned from archaeological excavations. Their only legacy is a series of symbols carved into stone, their imagery indecipherable without an understanding of the cult's teachings. But they believed that knowledge of their faith could only be passed on orally, ensuring that outsiders would never catch a glimpse of their sacred rites. That's why we can only imagine what went on here. His eyes are closed. Rays of sunlight stream out from between them, forming a cross. Holds his arms out to receive the light. His image of Sol Invictus adorns countless Roman coins, so you may have seen him already. But who exactly was he? What did this mysterious figure represent? And how does he fit into the history of the Roman Empire? That's what we'll explore today. So let us now slip into the shadows. We know that these worshippers met in underground chambers, places reminiscent of caves, where darkness was absolute and artificial lighting was needed. There are other carvings, too, showing a torch being passed from one initiate to another, symbolizing the handing down of secret knowledge from one generation of worshippers to the next. When the cult first came to Europe, it was associated with soldiers and the legions of the Roman army. The cult spread from the east to the west, from Britain to Syria, and yet it never became popular. Well, as the 3rd century gave way to the 4th, Christianity began to take root in the Roman Empire, growing steadily in popularity. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to support the channel further, please check out our membership options. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to Rome. We'll meet influential men who will change the course of history. The action begins in a public bathhouse, a place of leisure and business. It is divided into 3 sections: the frigidarium, or cold bath, the tepidarium, or warm bath, and the caldarium, or hot bath. One is Marcus Agrippa, a brilliant military commander and politician who has been instrumental in expanding Rome's power and glory. He is the wealthiest man in Rome and a prominent member of the ruling class, known for his ruthless business practices and cunning political maneuvering. With him are 2 other powerful senators, Pompey the Great and Julius Caesar. Suddenly, the tranquility of the bathhouse is shattered. They are shocked and saddened by the news of his death. But they know that they must act quickly to protect the future of Rome. Agrippa, ever the pragmatist, wasted no time in taking charge. They knew that their time was running out and that they needed to make a plan for the coming conflict. Cassius and Brutus argued over strategy, with Cassius urging caution and Brutus demanding action. But before they could reach a consensus, a messenger arrived with news that turned their worst fears into reality. They were outnumbered and outgunned, and they knew that their chances of winning were slim. But they were willing to fight to the death to defend the Roman Republic. Fearing both Octavian's wrath and the mob's vengeance, they know their time is short. Or will their dreams of restoring the Roman Republic die with them? Stay tuned for part 2, where the fate of Rome hangs in the balance. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on future episodes. Thanks for watching. Their dream of a restored republic seems more and more distant with each passing day. The conspirators discuss their dwindling options, their voices echoing eerily in the labyrinthine tunnels. Brutus, ever the idealist, still believes in their cause, while Cassius grows increasingly pessimistic. Will they find a way to escape, or is this the end for the Roman Republic? The fate of Rome rests on their shoulders, and only time will tell if they can rise to the challenge. The battle was fierce and bloody, but in the end, the conspirators were defeated. Cassius and Brutus were killed, and the other conspirators were forced to flee. Octavian and Agrippa had won the day, and it seemed as though the future of Rome was secure. Octavian and Agrippa had assembled an army and were marching on Rome. They were celebrated by the people, who saw them as the saviors of the Republic. But as the celebrations died down, the 2 men knew that their work was not finished. They had defeated the conspirators, but they now had to deal with the aftermath of Caesar's assassination and decide what to do next. The fate of Rome hung in the balance, and the 2 men knew that they had to act carefully and wisely to secure their legacy and protect the empire's interests. He immediately began making preparations to defend Caesar's body and ensure the safety of the remaining members of the Julian clan. He was a staunch defender of the Republic and had been a vocal critic of Caesar's rise to power. The streets were empty, deserted by the people who had fled to the countryside to escape the coming conflict. The conspirators made their way through the shadows, avoiding patrols and checkpoints, until they finally reached the safety of Gaul. There they began to assemble an army, training and drilling their soldiers in preparation for the coming battle. Meanwhile, Octavian and Agrippa had taken control of Rome. They had crushed any opposition and were now preparing to march on Gaul to put down the rebellion once and for all. But even he could not deny the gravity of the situation. The conspirators were outnumbered and outgunned, and they knew that they could not win a battle against Octavian and Agrippa's forces. Suddenly, Cato spoke up, his voice echoing with conviction. He proposed a daring plan that could turn the tide of the war in their favor. He suggested that the conspirators should escape from Rome and raise an army in Gaul, a region known for its fierce warriors. If they could rally the Gauls to their cause, they might stand a chance against Octavian and Agrippa. The conspirators were skeptical, but they knew that they had little to lose. So they agreed to Cato's plan and prepared for their escape. At the same time, Octavian, still in shock, found himself drawn to the support and guidance of Marcus Vipsanius Agrippa. Together, the two men formed an unlikely alliance. Agrippa, with his years of experience and military savvy, became a mentor to the young Octavian, helping him navigate the treacherous waters of Roman politics and prepare for the challenges ahead. A guard bursts through the doors, his face pale with fear. He delivers the news that will change everything. Caesar has been assassinated. The assassination of Caesar had sent shockwaves throughout the city, leaving many to wonder what would happen next. Amidst the turmoil, rumors began to spread that Octavian and Agrippa were planning to take revenge on the conspirators. People took sides, forming factions and alliances as they tried to figure out where their loyalties lay. The streets of Rome were a battleground of conflicting opinions, with supporters of Caesar clashing with those who backed the conspiracy. The situation was tense and volatile, and it seemed as though the city could erupt into violence at any moment. The conspirators rejoice, believing that they have saved the Roman Republic, but soon, suspicion and paranoia begin to set in. Each man wonders if he might be the next target. The conspirators try to hide their faces behind towels, but it's too late. Cassius and Brutus are spotted, and the cat is out of the bag. The other is Gaius Octavius, Caesar's grandnephew and heir, also known as Augustus, who will one day rule the empire as its first emperor. He is a brilliant general and an ambitious politician who has risen to become the most powerful man in Rome, but his meteoric rise to power has made him enemies, and there are those who would see him dead. Despite the looming threat, Caesar takes pleasure in the simple joys of the moment, indulging in the warm water and the soft touch of the towels. He knows that he is the target of envy and jealousy, but he is confident in his own abilities and trusts in his ability to overcome any obstacle. For now, he is content to relax and enjoy the luxurious surroundings of the bathhouse, secure in the knowledge that he is the most powerful man in Rome. Their discussion covers a range of topics, from recent military victories to the challenges of maintaining order and stability in such a vast empire. Octavian listens intently to Agrippa's insights, eager to learn from his experience and wisdom. The future of Rome hangs in the balance as these two powerful men exchange ideas and strategize about the best way to secure their legacy and protect the empire's interests. The patrons move from one to the other in order to clean themselves thoroughly, and this is where our story begins. You can almost hear the low murmur of voices as men of status meet to discuss the affairs of Rome, their naked bodies glistening with oil. They scratch and scrape themselves while exchanging pleasantries. Among them are two men who stand out, Marcus Junius, Brutus, and Gaius, Cassius Longinus. They are conspirators, men who have come together in secret to plot the downfall of the Roman Empire's most powerful man, Caesar, will dine like emperors, bathe in marble palaces, and mingle with the elite at banquets that last all night long. Brutus, a respected senator known for his integrity and noble bearing, is torn between his duty to the Republic and his personal feelings for Caesar. Cassius, on the other hand, is driven by ambition and resentment towards Caesar's growing power. The air in the bathhouse is heavy with tension as they strategize about how to end Caesar's reign and restore balance to Rome. But before they can make any moves, they must first get themselves cleaned up. This is a Roman bathhouse, after all, and even revolutionaries need to take care of their hygiene. Imagine now stepping into the warm marble embrace of a Roman bathhouse. Not the cramped insula, but the grand thermae, where the elite relaxed and socialized. The air is thick with steam, scented faintly with oils and herbs. Voices echo softly across the vaulted ceilings. Water trickles from fountains into pools. Some hot, some cold, some just right for lingering. The bath is not just for washing. It is a place of leisure, politics, and power. Here, senators discuss laws, artists recite poetry, and friends debate philosophy. A world away from the crowded streets below. We are in ancient Rome, specifically the 1st century AD. The conspirators discuss their plans in hushed tones, aware that their every word is watched and listened to. As the conspirators scrub their bodies, the scene shifts to a nearby pool where two young men are engaged in a lively conversation. Suddenly, a group of men enter the bathhouse, led by the imposing figure of Marcus Licinius Crassus. Meanwhile, as Caesar enjoys the pleasures of the bath, he is blissfully unaware of the danger that lurks nearby. But little does he know that a group of senators, led by Cassius and Brutus, are plotting against him, ready to strike when the time is right. Meanwhile, as the conspirators celebrate their victory, Octavian and Agrippa are summoned to Caesar's residence. As the conspirators prepared for their final stand, the people of Rome were thrown into chaos and confusion. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the city, the conspirators gathered in the Senate for one last meeting. Just then, Marcus Porcius Cato, one of the most respected senators in Rome, entered the chamber. As the conspirators slipped out of Rome, the city was plunged into darkness. As the two armies prepared to face off, the conspirators knew that they were outmatched. With the rebellion crushed, Octavian and Agrippa returned to Rome as heroes. Afterward, you can find the conspirators, weary and wounded, hiding out in the catacombs beneath Rome. And that's the end of part 1. What do you think? Will our conspirators be able to escape the clutches of Octavian and Agrippa? Our journey now winds down. From the cramped, smoky apartments where the common Roman endured daily struggles, to the tragic, theatrical life of Nero, a man both reviled and misunderstood. From the secretive, candlelit rituals of the Mithraic cult, to the indulgent luxury of Roman elites bathing and feasting beneath vaulted ceilings. History is many things. It is loud and quiet. It's brutal and beautiful. It is the echo of voices long silenced, and the soft, steady rhythm of everyday life. As you close your eyes, imagine the distant murmur of the Tiber River, the flicker of oil lamps, the gentle crackle of a fire behind thick walls. Let the stories drift away like a slow-moving cloud across a Roman sky. There's nothing to fear here. Only time, only rest. Good night. Welcome. Settle in. Let the room grow quiet. Let your thoughts drift back to another time. A world sealed behind high red walls beneath golden tiled roofs. We are going to the Forbidden City, the imperial heart of Beijing, not as an emperor, not even as a guest, but as one of the thousands of silent servants who lived in its shadows. This was not a place of freedom. It was a palace of rules, rituals, and quiet suffering. Tonight, we'll explore life among the forgotten, the silent workers, the powerful women, the missing treasures, and the lonely princes raised in luxury, yet starved of liberty. Let's step into the hush of history. Begin. You rise in darkness, not because you want to, but because you must. You are a servant in the Forbidden City, and the sun must never rise before you do. You do not speak, you do not smile, do not make yourself known. You know what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. A rat darts across the floor. Cockroach scuttles under a shelf. You chase them down because roaches carry disease and rats can burn down the city. His victories, his wisdom, his children. You clean behind the court ladies. Their silks are heavy with perfume. They do not acknowledge your existence, just as you do not acknowledge theirs. You were born a nobody, and you will die a nobody. They will throw you into the river with the others, broken and forgotten. If you live past 40, the river will be cold. If you live past 50, the river will be ice. Most servants don't make it past 30. Some do, because there are other ways to die. Sometimes a hand brushes yours, and you feel the heat. You remember what it was like to be a woman. You remember what it was like to be human. The Forbidden City is silent except for the rustle of silk and the squeak of the broom. You are the music of the palace. And the emperor dances to your tune. He invites scholars, poets, acrobats, all the best the empire has to offer. The tigers don't care who you are. The leopards don't care about your service. They kill you anyway. After they eat and drink, some of them come here, carry stretchers out of the city. You do not ask questions. You do not need answers. As you walk through the palace, you hear whispers. They follow you down the corridors. They bounce off the walls and come back to you. Whispers of what could have been. Whispers of who you once were. Whispers of a life that the emperor stole. These whispers drive you mad. They turn your insides to water. They make you forget your name, forget who you are, forget why you came here. These whispers are your punishment. This is your cage. The Forbidden City was never yours. It never will be. Inside the city, people are dying. The air is thick with smoke. The moon hides behind clouds. The stars are afraid to shine. You watch the city burn, and you think of the old world, of green fields, of thatched huts, of a mother's smile.
Ow.
Then the wind changes direction. It blows the ashes away.
Ow.
And you go back to work. You sweep the courtyard. Again. Outside the city, people are dying. They stumble out of the corridors, drunk on wine and dreams. The flames lick at the gold, the marble, the wood. You take off your coat and use it to cover a baby. You push the mother away. She screams, but the fire is bigger. You cannot save them all. You try. Sometimes they sing songs of the old world. Sometimes they tell jokes. Sometimes they fall on their swords. The emperor does not care. When you hear footsteps, you do not move. You pretend to be a statue carved from wood. No servant looks another in the eye, even the empress. Some say she walks these halls. Now, you may serve her tea someday. Maybe. Mistake one step, and you will be out of the city before sunrise. Here you gather with the gardeners, the sweepers, the bards. Each of you has a job to do. Each of you has a corner to keep immaculate. Here the punishments are harshest. If you are slow to open a gate, a noble's carriage will smash you flat. Now you are trusted to be around the emperor. To do this, they have to bind your arms behind your back, like a criminal. You are the one who cleans up after him, the one who smooths his robes, the one who fixes his crown. You do not look at him. You do not dare. He speaks and you respond. Yes, my emperor. No, my emperor. Whatever he asks, you provide. If you drop a flower pot, its shards will cut you and you will bleed on the ground. If you do not pick up a discarded handkerchief, it will be found, and the emperor will discover that you did not pick it up. You may not stay in this courtyard for too long. You are only passing through. You are a pawn in a game you do not understand. For a servant without the emperor's protection, the streets are a graveyard, and the night is long, with too many knives.
Aye.
You work in the imperial kitchens. The steam from the woks makes your head swim. In the dim oil lamplight, you see the cooks toss the food like acrobats. If you are fast enough, you get to eat the leftovers. Otherwise, you get the scraps. Sometimes a cook will teach you a trick. Then you might get to be his assistant. Or not. You do not ask questions. You just work. You sweep the same courtyard every morning. One reserved for nobles who no longer walk there. Your world is small. Very small. Your meals are simple. Rice, water, perhaps a slice of dried turnip if you're fortunate. Salt is a luxury. Meat is a rumor.
Ow.
You kneel, you wait, and you listen. For footsteps, for orders, for trouble. A dropped tray could mean disgrace, a wrong glance, exile, a whispered joke, punishment. There are no windows in your sleeping quarters, just silence. And the breath of the man beside you, who dares not snore. You wear the same clothes each day. Patches upon patches, yet they must be clean, immaculate. Even if your hands are cracked from washing. Each corridor you clean belongs to someone else. Each bowl you scrub is eaten from by someone who has never spoken your name. Sometimes, if you're lucky, you glimpse the emperor. But you do not look directly. You stare at the ground. Always the Forbidden City is beautiful, but not for you. It is a maze of marble, gold, and fear. A place where whispers echo. Obedience is survival. Your mother died in childbirth. So your father sold you to the palace when you were 6. In those days, you ran errands for the eunuchs. A life of drudgery was ahead of you. At least you had a name. At least you had a past. One day during the summer, you were sweeping an empty courtyard. It's when they took it away. They cut off your braids, bound your feet, tattooed your ankle with a red dot, and then they made you swallow a bitter pill. From that moment, you were nothing. No name, no past, no future. You belong to the Emperor. And the Emperor owned everything. It has been 13 years since then. You have learned the rules. After 3 years, you graduate to the storerooms. Everything is neatly stacked here. Silks, spices, shoes, scrolls. Nothing is ever used. Everything is just kept. After 5 more years, you graduate to the courtyards. After 10 years, you graduate to the corridors. This is the place of power. On the walls hang the deeds of the Emperor. At 21, you graduate to the last level, the audience chamber. And now we enter the best part. All you have to do is survive. This is the place of power. Once a month, the Emperor hosts a banquet. Once a year, the Emperor hosts a hunt. Do not get caught. It's that simple. Sometimes there's war. The servants are divided into teams. There are fires in the Forbidden City. Servants run around like headless chickens. In the end, you are alone in a courtyard. And again. And so you sweep the courtyards. Day after day, year after year, until the day you die. The end. Welcome back to the Forbidden City. We've been exploring the rooms of the Chinese emperors. Last time we were here, we looked at the opulent living quarters of the imperial family, which separates the outer court, where government business was conducted, from the inner court, which is reserved for the family members of the emperor. They are followed by 2 others carrying lotus seed fans. To our left is a garden with gravel paths and miniature rolling hills, a perfect place for a midday stroll. This was the main living area of Cixi, consisting of 3 main halls. The room directly opposite the entrance was where Cixi spent most of her time. Adorned with furniture made from yellow wood and covered in fine Suzhou brocade, the room was filled with items that symbolized Cixi's status and power. In the center sat a large table, surrounded by 8 chairs, each with their own unique design, representing the 8 trigrams of the I Ching. As the most important woman in China, she was expected to dress in the finest garments and adorn herself with the most exquisite jewels on important occasions. This is where Cixi's personal servants lived, including her eunuchs, palace maids, and secretaries. On the surface, it appears to be just another part of the sprawling complex. Walking through the garden, we come across a pavilion where Cixi would often take tea and enjoy the scenery. From here, we can see the Hall of Yushan, where the empresses of the Qing dynasty lived. The year was 1908, and the Qing dynasty was on the verge of collapse. I hope you'll subscribe so you don't miss out on any of our future videos. Until next time, stay curious. As Cixi lay on her deathbed, she made one last power play. With her grip on the empire slipping, she decided to install her grandson, Pui, as the new emperor, keeping him under the control of her appointed regent. But her cunning didn't stop there. Suspecting that her own demise might be hastened by her rivals, she had them all eliminated, including the outspoken and progressive Grand Counselor Ye Kuang and her own nephew, who she believed was plotting against her. Some whisper that she even poisoned her grandson, ending his reign just as abruptly as her own. But whether or not that's true, what is certain is that with Cixi's death, an era came to an end. The Qing dynasty stumbled on for another 3 years, until the Xinhai Revolution forced Pui to abdicate, ending 2,000 years of imperial rule in China. And finally, we reached the Hall of Preserving Harmony, where Cixi spent her final years and ultimately passed away. However, this unassuming structure was actually the go-to spot for Cixi's suitors during her younger days. This was Cixi's place of rest, where she spent countless hours reading, writing, and receiving visitors. The room is decorated with traditional Chinese furniture and artwork, giving it a timeless, elegant feel. Despite its grandeur, the room has a certain intimacy to it, suggesting a more personal side to Cixi's character. In a far corner of the room is a dressing table adorned with cosmetics and jewelry, hinting at the effort Cixi put into her appearance. The room exudes a sense of power and refinement, offering a glimpse into the life of one of history's most influential women. Before she became the Empress Dowager, she was a mere concubine vying for the attention of the emperor. Back then, the rules were simple. If she wanted to catch his eye, she had to make herself scarce. She would spend hours upon hours in this very residence, trying to make herself invisible. Now, it might sound counterintuitive, but this strategy worked. The emperor eventually noticed her absence and began searching for her. When he finally found her in this small apartment, he was so enamored with her demureness and quiet dignity that he took her as his concubine. Thus, this unassuming apartment played a pivotal role in shaping the future of the Qing dynasty. It was here that Cixi's journey from a low-ranking concubine to the most powerful woman in China began. There were around 300 people in total working in Cixi's household, making it one of the largest households in the Forbidden City. Life for these servants was not easy. They had to be loyal and obedient to Cixi at all times and were expected to work long hours without complaint. However, they also enjoyed a certain amount of privilege and luxury, as they were responsible for taking care of Cixi's every need and were rewarded with generous salaries and gifts. Her wardrobe included a wide variety of robes and dresses made from luxurious materials like silk and velvet and decorated with intricate embroidery and precious stones. She also had a large collection of gold and silver jewelry, including necklaces, earrings, bracelets, and hair ornaments. Cixi was particularly fond of jade jewelry, which she considered to be the finest in the world. She would often wear a necklace made of perfectly matched jade beads or a pair of jade earrings adorned with intricate designs. Her collection also included items from other cultures that she acquired through trade and diplomacy, such as Indian diamonds and Burmese rubies. Overall, Cixi's wardrobe was a reflection of her status and wealth, as well as her personal taste and style. Above the table hung a magnificent screen made from red sandalwood, inlaid with ivory and depicting auspicious symbols such as bats and peonies. The room was finished off with a pair of bronze censers and embroidered bed curtains, giving it a sense of luxury and refinement. Straight ahead of us is the Hall of Compassion, also known as the West Six Palace Hall, where Cixi would receive guests and hold court. Tucked away in a corner was a secret passageway leading to the Hall of Benevolence, where Cixi's personal attendants slept. Here, Cixi would review and approve documents brought to her by the palace officials. Surrounding her were shelves filled with scrolls and books, providing her with easy access to the vast body of literature that was available to her. Although Cixi was known for her shrewd intellect and ability to manipulate those around her, she was also a patron of the arts and learning, and she was particularly fond of poetry and calligraphy. The passage allowed her to move around the compound undetected, a useful feature considering the number of enemies that she made during her long and controversial reign. On the right-hand side is another garden, this one filled with blossoming flowers and chirping birds. It's a peaceful scene, but one that belies the machinations that were taking place behind these high walls. This central courtyard was a place of tranquility and beauty, filled with lush vegetation and decorated with ornate stone bridges and winding paths. Here, Cixi could escape the hustle and bustle of court life and enjoy some peace and quiet. It was also a place where she would meet with her closest advisors and confidants. Hidden from view, tucked away in a corner of the courtyard, was a small two-story library. It was here that Cixi would spend hours reading through ancient texts and discussing philosophical ideas with her favorite eunuch and confidant, Wang. The library was filled with thousands of historical records, philosophical treatises, and literary classics, providing Cixi with a wealth of knowledge and inspiration. One of her favorite books was The Art of War by Sun Tzu, which she read frequently and even quoted from time to time. These are servants whose duty it was to make sure that when the Empress Dowager walked through this door, nobody else was there to block her way. As we walked down the path towards the main gate of Cixi's residence, we passed by the Hall of Mental Cultivation. This was the private audience hall of the Shanfeng Emperor and the Tongzi Emperor. The Shanfeng Emperor was Cixi's husband, and the Tongzi Emperor was their son, and the last Qing Emperor. Both men suffered from mental illness. And after the death of her husband, Cixi effectively took over the role of emperor for both herself and her son. Today, however, we're going to do something different. We're going to look at the private chambers of the most powerful woman in China for almost 50 years. A woman whose influence extended beyond the Forbidden City and whose power rivaled that of the emperors themselves. I'm your host. Now, today we are exploring the rooms of Cixi. To enter the rooms of Cixi, we have to go past the gate of heavenly purity as we come to the main gate of Cixi's residence, You can see two yellow-headed palace maids standing either side of it. Upon entering, we find ourselves in the first of many courtyards within the estate of Cixi. After passing through the second gate, we arrive at the courtyard of many windows. But there was much more to this room than met the eye. From this room, we can also enter the room of imperial edicts. The layout of Cixi's rooms is similar to that of a typical Chinese courtyard home, as several interconnected rooms surrounding a central courtyard. On the other side of the main courtyard is the House of Imperial Wardrobe, a place where Cixi kept her vast collection of clothing and jewelry. We now come to the Hall of Benevolence. The far corner of the main courtyard sits a modest two-room residence. Behind the main courtyard lies another garden, this one filled with exotic plants and trees from across China. Stepping into the Hall of Preserving Harmony, we're greeted by an ornate bed draped in luxurious fabrics, complete with mosquito netting. Cixi may have wielded extraordinary power, but even she couldn't escape the inevitable march of time. That's all we have time for today. Thank you for joining me in the Forbidden City. Welcome to my channel. Today we're exploring what happened to the libraries of the Forbidden City. Two locked doors, forgotten basements, and fires that left no ash. The Forbidden City once held vast libraries, scrolls upon scrolls, jade records, paintings older than memory. Whole wings of the palace were built for storing knowledge, the accumulated wisdom of emperors. That might seem small compared to modern collections, but remember, these were pre-industrial times. Records indicate that during the turbulent years following the fall of the Ming dynasty, much was lost. The library was sacked twice, first by rebel armies, and then by the victorious Qing forces. One housed over 10,000 historical maps, but only a small fraction of these remain. It might seem out of place, given the vast collection of ancient texts housed within the Imperial Library, but it played a vital role in preserving China's cultural heritage. Their work covered a wide range of topics from history and literature to science and philosophy. In a time when information was not as easily shared, its collections were largely inaccessible to the general public. Access was restricted to those within the palace walls, and the knowledge contained within the books was not widely disseminated. It was a stark contrast to the grand libraries of the West, which aimed to make scholarship available to all. Instead, the Imperial Library served primarily as a resource for those in power, informing decisions and shaping the worldview of the elite. If you enjoyed this journey through time, don't forget to hit that subscribe button to join me on more adventures. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring the mysteries of the Forbidden City. Its vast collection remained largely hidden from the masses, a secret treasure trove of knowledge tucked away in the heart of the Forbidden City. Imagine scholars poring over ancient texts, discussing their findings and sharing their insights. Servants rush about packing belongings, preparing to flee the soon-to-be abandoned palace. Did they burn, vanish, or lie dormant, waiting to be rediscovered? The answers, like whispers from the past, echo through the empty halls, inviting us to piece together the fragments of a forgotten legacy. Amidst the chaos, rumors spread of secret rooms, locked libraries, and entire wings of the palace off-limits to all. Stories of mysterious fires add to the intrigue, raising questions about what valuable artifacts might have perished in the flames. What did the last emperor take with him? Did he leave behind a trove of secrets and knowledge as he fled his former life? Or did he carry with him priceless relics of his forgotten empire? The air would be filled with the rustle of paper and the murmur of voices as they uncovered new knowledge and interpretations. This intellectual exchange would have been a vibrant and stimulating process, fostering creativity and pushing the boundaries of understanding. As we explore its timeless halls, we re-reminded of the rich tapestry of stories that have shaped our world and the enduring allure of the Forbidden City. Sadly, we know little about their discoveries or debates. Most of their work went unpublished, and what was written often focused on more practical matters like record-keeping or the arts of war. Here, skilled artisans carefully reproduced ancient manuscripts, ensuring that their contents would not be lost to time. These copies were not mere replicas, but works of art in themselves. They were created using traditional methods and materials, paying homage to the original works while serving as a safeguard against damage or destruction. But what types of texts were reproduced in this way? Were they historical documents, philosophical treatises, or perhaps something else entirely? The answer is all of the above. Scope of their work was vast, encompassing a wide range of subjects and genres. The intention was to create a comprehensive archive of important Chinese texts, safeguarding them for future generations to learn from and appreciate. Unfortunately, little is known about this printing room and its operations. Records are scarce and many questions remain unanswered. What happened to the prints after they were completed? Where are they now? And how many precious texts were saved through this labor-intensive process? The lack of information is a reminder of the fragility of history and the importance of preserving our cultural heritage. Another focused on paleography, the study of ancient writing. Their work involved deciphering old documents, helping to piece together China's rich past. But their efforts seem to have been largely forgotten. Later, during the reign of the Qianlong Emperor, a fire broke out, though its cause remains a mystery. These events undoubtedly caused significant damage, but the full extent of the losses is unknown. Some believe that certain collections were deliberately destroyed, such as those relating to the former Ming rulers, a way to erase their dynasty from history. However, there's no concrete evidence to support this claim. Each book was a labor of love, copied by hand, and often containing multiple works in one volume. Many were illustrated, adding to the time and effort required. The variety of subjects was vast. History, philosophy, poetry, science, mathematics, and even cartography were all represented. There were also practical guides for imperial duties and literature from across the known world, thanks to the efforts of missionaries and merchants. And yet so much is gone. Vanished rooms, destroyed maps, archives burned, or perhaps hidden. Some say it began with the fall of the Ming dynasty. When the Japanese invaded, many more were relocated to Sichuan. During the Second Sino-Japanese War, even more were moved to Chongqing and eventually returned to Beijing in 1946. With this constant movement came additional risks, including theft and the possibility of damage due to improper handling. Despite these challenges, the core of the imperial collection survived, ensuring that much of China's ancient wisdom was preserved for future generations. In the chaos, rebels ransacked rooms. Others claim the Qing destroyed Ming records to erase their memory. Still others believe the palace itself, with its secret tunnels and sealed doors, still hides rooms no one alive has seen. In the 1920s, when the last emperor left, stories emerged of locked libraries, servants who swore certain hallways simply ended. Fires were common and not always accidents. Scrolls were delicate, a single spark, a century of history gone. Archaeologists today find clues, ghost rooms beneath floorboards, empty brackets on walls, but no answers. The Forbidden City kept its secrets well. Some it took with it into silence. Now let's follow the corridors not walked in centuries. It's built over 600 years ago. It was designed to house an empire. While we know the layout of the city's outer courts where officials conducted business, and the inner quarters where the emperor's family resided, there are many areas we cannot access. Here's a photo from the early 1900s. We can see the imperial study and the imperial archives behind it. This complex, known as the Wang Palace, was at the center of power and knowledge. Think of it as the brain of the Forbidden City. The eunuchs who served here had to pass rigorous exams. Being chosen for their intelligence rather than their royal connections, they managed the massive library, copying and organizing texts. Their work preserved imperial knowledge across generations. But what did they preserve exactly? How big was the library? Within its high walls, emperors would rise and fall, but their legacy was meant to endure. Now welcome back. The Forbidden City stands as a testament to China's imperial past. But within its silent halls, whispers of a hidden past linger. What happened to the countless books, documents, and artifacts that once filled its libraries? Did they burn, vanish, or lie dormant, waiting to be rediscovered? Join me as we unravel the mystery of the lost libraries of the Forbidden City. The Forbidden City was never meant to be a mausoleum of memories. The Forbidden City wasn't just a home. It was a universe unto itself, complete with its own postal system, factories, and even dedicated fire brigade. In the Qing dynasty, the Imperial Library boasted a collection of over 300,000 books. Unfortunately, this treasure trove of knowledge didn't survive intact. As for the remaining books, most were moved to the National Palace Museum in Taipei after the Qing dynasty. The library wasn't just about books. It had specialized departments. Amidst the grandeur of the Forbidden City, tucked away in a quiet corner was a humble room used for printing. The Imperial Library was also a place of learning. Scholars and officials came here to research, write, and debate. Despite the scale of the Imperial Library, its impact on the wider world was surprisingly limited. Now, imagine the Forbidden City in the 1920s as the last emperor prepares to leave. As the sun sets over the Forbidden City, casting long shadows across its deserted courtyards, one question lingers in the air. What happened to the libraries of the Forbidden City? While the fate of the libraries remains shrouded in mystery, one thing is certain: the Forbidden City continues to captivate our imagination. Offering glimpses into a world where emperors held court, knowledge was revered, and history unfolded. So what do you think happened to the libraries? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for joining me today. As we have seen throughout this series, life in the Forbidden City was rigidly structured. The emperor and his consorts had their roles, and they had their rules. But life for the royals was also highly regulated. Let's go back to the beginning, into the quiet rooms of a prince. Born into royalty, wrapped in silk, surrounded by tutors, servants, and ceremony. It sounds like privilege, and it is. This is Prince Chen, the future Tongzi emperor. And today is his birthday. There are 5 cakes for the celebration, each more magnificent than the last, and all made with the finest ingredients. Before he goes, his nanny Li helps him put on the finest clothes she has prepared for the day. The journey is short, but it is important for the boy to understand that the Forbidden City is not his to roam at will. Now, the court is waiting. Servants clear the way. Guards stand by. Tutors trail behind. The young prince enters the hall and kneels before the Dowager Empress. Every day he tries to teach the young prince something new, but today it's calligraphy. He throws himself on the couch and closes his eyes. He's tired of writing. The tutor watches him and sighs. He knows that the young prince means well, but his heart isn't in it. They run around the courtyard laughing and playing games. He was known for his intelligence, courage, and compassion. He ruled over China for many years and is remembered as one of the greatest emperors of all time. But remember, this is just one story of many. Each prince had his own path and legacy. One of the children trips and falls. The young prince rushes to his side and helps him up. The fallen child is crying, but the young prince comforts him and tells him it's okay. The other children watch the interaction, and some whisper among themselves. The young prince ignores them and continues playing with the fallen child.
Ow.
He doesn't care what the others think. He knows that the fallen child is hurt and needs his help. The 2 children become friends, and from that day on, they always look out for each other. The tutor approaches the couch and asks the prince why he's upset. The prince opens his eyes and tells the tutor that he doesn't want to be emperor. The tutor is taken aback. He cannot believe what he's hearing. Of course, the prince wants to be emperor. It's his destiny. The tutor has carefully prepared the desk and arranged the brushes and ink. Everything must be perfect for the young prince. He doesn't want to be emperor, just wants to be a normal kid who can run around in the gardens all day. He doesn't want to write, paint, draw, or study. He just wants to be free. The tutor listens to the prince and realizes that he has a point. Maybe he's been too hard on the boy. Maybe he's pushed him too much, too soon. The tutor apologizes to the prince and promises to be more understanding in the future. The prince forgives him, and they part ways. The tutor goes back to his desk to grade papers, and the prince goes to the garden to play. When he arrives, he sits down and begins writing. But after a few moments, he stops, looks at the paper in his hand, and throws it away. He doesn't like what he has written. The tutor is unhappy. This is the 3rd piece the prince has destroyed. He must show respect to the most powerful woman in China. Then comes the gift. The Dowager Empress accepts it with a smile. It's just a small token, but she knows the value of such gestures. The prince did well. For this particular audience, Li chose a golden yellow jacket for the little prince. Yellow was the color of the emperor. There's no time to waste. He'll be emperor one day, and the tutor knows that he will be a great one. Da! The young prince is intelligent and quick to learn. He's also brave and compassionate. Tutor knows that the prince will do great things. But for now, he needs to relax and enjoy his childhood. The tutor watches the prince playing and smiling. He's happy to see him so carefree. The tutor knows that the prince will need this happiness when he becomes emperor. It won't be easy being emperor, but the tutor knows that the young prince is up to the task. Wearing it was a privilege reserved for the most important occasions. It is said that the young prince loved these silk jackets with the golden dragon embroidery. He felt like a real emperor wearing them. What would you wish for on your birthday, more cakes? How about the entire imperial kitchen? That's what the Dowager Empress gave to Prince Chen. She wants him to enjoy himself. He's just turned 8. He runs around enjoying the cool breeze and the fine weather. The young prince is not happy about this, but he knows better than to argue. As he walks away, we can see that his butterfly has flown away. Soon he will forget about it, but the memory remains. A moment of joy in an endless sea of duty. Life is good. But even here, the prince cannot be truly free. There's always someone watching. He stops to admire the flowers and the colorful butterflies fluttering around them, picks one up, a beautiful blue one, and asks his tutor to write a poem about it. But the tutor has other things on his mind, is thinking about how his student will make an excellent emperor one day. But it is also a kind of prison. A Qing prince wakes early, not from noise, but from duty. He practices calligraphy until his hand aches, studies the classics. He learns to bow, to walk, to speak in perfect tones. He eats what is served. He wears what is chosen. He meets who is allowed. His lessons are long. His playtime supervised. His words recorded. Outside his rooms, the court waits. Schemes swirl. Even as a child, he is watched. Perhaps he will inherit power. Perhaps he will be married off to secure an alliance. Perhaps he will be forgotten, and yet he cannot leave. It's not without permission, not without consequence. He may wear jade pendants, but they are no lighter than chains. The palace is quiet, his world polished, and behind every curtain, expectation. To be royal was to live with weight, a life written before it was lived. Now let us walk softly through one final corridor. In the halls of the Forbidden City, a young boy runs, carefree, or so it seems. Look at the guards outside. You think they smile while on duty? Do you think the servants smile when they work? Everything here is serious business. The emperor smiles. It's a rare sight indeed. The palace was built for emperors, not for children. So on his birthday, the young prince is already learning the ways of the ruler, even if he doesn't realize it yet. The first lesson. When you receive a gift, you must reciprocate. And what does an 8-year-old have to give? Himself? But in reality, there is no room for carefree laughter in the Forbidden City. The Dowager Empress has sent for the prince. It is time for him to pay a visit to her. Once he is dressed, the entourage makes its way to the main courtyard, where a palanquin waits to carry the prince inside. Now, it is time for the return trip. Back to the East 6th Palace, the young prince goes to his favorite place, the Imperial Garden. When the sun is high in the sky, it is time for more lessons. Back in the palace, the tutor prepares for the next lesson. The young prince leaves the desk, doesn't want to write anymore. The tutor tries to explain this to the young prince, but the more he talks, the more the prince shakes his head. From an early age, the young prince is preparing for his future role. A young prince plays with a group of children in the Forbidden City. This was a true story about a young prince who became a great emperor. For more stories of love and life in the Forbidden City, subscribe for more updates. And as always, thanks for watching. Now, the lanterns have dimmed. The city outside the red walls slumbers, and within the palace, only echoes remain. You've walked with the invisible, the quiet servants whose names we do not know. You've witnessed power without voice, in the form of Sixie's calm commands. You've glimpsed history lost, in the empty rooms of a vanished archive, and you felt the loneliness of luxury. Through the eyes of a child prince, the Forbidden City was a marvel, a masterpiece. But it was also a maze of silence, shadows, and stillness. As your eyes close now, imagine a single falling leaf landing on a palace tile. No sound, no stir, just time, passing. And all those who once lived behind the walls, fading gently into the hush. Sleep well.